Hello everyone, welcome to the Growth Switch with me, Cyril. This week we'll be talking about a very important topic, particularly it's very relevant to our country where we have very high levels of inequality. So funding for students in relation to higher education is a massive issue in this country. So what I'm going to share with you today are some tips and insights into what you should consider if you're looking into obtaining a scholarship or bursary funding that will assist you in your studies. If you think of particularly the last 10 years or so, this issue has come into full focus in this country, and particularly with the Fees Must Fall protests. So all of that stems from the need to have this funding for higher education. A lot of the students particularly come from disadvantaged backgrounds, and their parents or relatives are not able to support them financially through their education system. This was particularly true for myself as well. My parents both didn't attain a matric, so they both held piece jobs here and there to make ends meet and to support us as a family. So when I wanted to pursue a career as a chartered accountant, one of the challenges I faced was that I was meant to go to university and obtain a degree and an honors, and then do articles thereafter and write boards. But all of that comes with costs and can be rather expensive. And I basically realized that my parents would not be able to afford that for me. So early on, I made a decision that I would pursue opportunities to obtain scholarship or bursary funding. And I started applying to various organizations that provided such funding. And throughout this episode, I'll share my experiences as I give you the tips and insights on what you should consider or what you should take into account when you're going to embark on this journey of obtaining a scholarship or bursary funding. So the first thing you should consider is what it is that you want to study and where you want to study. So what you want to study will help you, because in terms of bursaries and scholarships, there's certain organizations that will focus on a niche market, meaning they'll only focus mainly on accountants or engineers or health sciences students. So you need to know what it is that you want to study, because that will help you in terms of understanding which organizations you need to approach in an attempt to get funding from them. And also where you want to study will also help you, because you need to factor things like, for example, if you live in Johannesburg, and let's say for argument's sake the field of study or the degree you want to study is only offered in Cape Town, so that means part of the funding that you're going to need is going to be residence accommodation, because if you relocate from Joburg to Cape Town to study, you will need a place to stay. So all of that will help you understand in terms of, okay, so you're looking for not only someone who's going to fund you for your tuition, but also someone who's going to help fund you for your residence. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's key to know where it is, what it is that you want to study and where. And then you also need to understand when to start looking, right? So for me, I would say the earlier the better. I would say grade 11, you should already starting to look based on your marks there, because there you are literally almost at grade 12. And usually how you do in your grade 11 tends to be a good indication of how you do in your grade 12, unless something drastically changes, which can happen, but it's a good start, and organization can start at least shortlisting you, whilst waiting for your grade 12 performance results. So yeah, so the earlier the better, because it gives you enough time as well to be able to, for example, if the organizations that you've applied to don't give you feedback in time, if they don't give you feedback in time, then you can then start seeing which other entities you need to apply to. Or if they give you feedback and it's not positive feedback, meaning they've chosen not to support you, then you can then pivot to other organizations. You still have that time, rather than starting late and when they respond to you, you don't have enough time to react and apply to other organizations. And you need to understand the requirements of those organizations in terms of what they look for when they want to support a student financially. So you need to look at things like what averages are they looking for. I spoke earlier about what fields of study that they're looking to support. You need to look at like sometimes, especially these days, they look for some form of community involvement. So what are you doing in your community? Are you a tutor? Are you doing any other community upliftment work? There's some of those bursary programs that look for that as part of their criteria. In terms of leadership, what are you doing in terms of leadership? So you need to understand what it is that all of these bursaries are looking for. So that you know yourself early. That's why it's important to start early, because you'll find that there's all these things that you can fix, rather quickly yourself. So if you look there and they want an average of so much for a specific subject, and you still have time to fix your study methods and exam techniques, that will help you to hit that required average. If you want more information on exam techniques, study methods, remember to look at episode 1, where I shared in depth in terms of that topic. What you also need to do is you need to apply to multiple organizations. Now, I've seen people where they apply to one organization, and that's dangerous, because you're literally putting all your eggs in one basket. If this one organization decides to not support you, then what? You need to be able to have alternatives. So it's important to apply to multiple organizations. Myself, when I was looking for support, I can tell you probably the organization that ended up supporting me was probably the 6th or 7th organization that I applied to. So yeah, you can see where if I'd stopped at the first organization, then yeah, I wouldn't have ended with support, because that first organization had declined me. But I made sure that I applied to multiple organizations to make sure that I increase my chances of securing funding. So yeah, don't apply to one organization, apply to multiple organizations at the same time. Obviously, if all of them take you, then you have to weigh up in terms of each of them. You rank them in terms of what are they going to offer you. Are they going to cover all of your expenses, tuition, res, so on and so forth? Are they going to, one thing I'm going to speak to shortly, are they going to offer you some form of employment afterwards? Because sometimes the organization will give you a bursary, and okay, we'll give you a bursary, but we will require you to work for us for 2 years or 3 years. Are they going to give you that? Because that's good, because that guarantees you some form of employment for your first 3 years of your career, and it also means that you will have at least 2 to 3 years of work experience under your belt already. A lot of graduates get their degrees, then they struggle to get their foot through the workplace. So if you can secure that up front, then hey, that's a benefit for you. So you look at all these criteria and you rank them, then you choose the one that's going to work best for you. And then, like I said, try to secure the bursaries which will offer you employment opportunities. So if a bursary says, like I said earlier, that we will give you, but you must work for us for 2 or 3 years, then that's probably the best position you want to be. And then in terms of understanding the T's and C's, okay, that's very important. You need to understand what are the terms and conditions of this bursary. If you, for example, don't pass, what are the consequences? Do you have to pay it back? So how much? I spoke to the employment issue 2 to 3 years. Some people want to be sponsored by a specific organization, but they don't necessarily want to work for that organization for that amount of time, 2 to 3 years. Yeah, that happens. So you need to understand what are the terms and conditions of this. Basically, it's to understand what it is that happens if you breach this contract. It's also important to understand as well what happens if the organization breaches the contract. Because remember, you're pretty much placing your ability to obtain this degree in that organization's hands. So if that organization basically needs to play to the agreement and make sure that they fulfill their obligations to the agreement, meaning they must pay your tuition, they must pay your res if that's what you've agreed. And if they don't do that, then you will suffer, So you need to make sure you understand all of those clauses. And if you don't understand them, get someone who's more experienced. It's what's best is if you know someone who's done law, then they can do it for you. But if you don't, usually these contracts, someone who's experienced is able to read them and understand them and tell you what's going on. So make sure that you get that in there. So that's everything you need to take into account and consider if you're looking to obtain your bursary or scholarship funding. Also remember that there's other forms of funding that you can get for your studies. If you're able to, you can get a loan. There's also the NSFAS route. But the most preferred route, I would say, would be to obtain a scholarship or a bursary. So if you take this into account, it should be helpful in your journey. And if I can tell you, it is not an easy journey. It is very emotional and challenging. It will test your perseverance. I've been there, like I said, 6 to 7 organizations I had to go through before I finally got assistance. So just be there and persevere through it all. It will be challenging for your family as well, because remember, your family wants you to attain these qualifications to make a difference not only to you but to them as well. So make sure that you lean on each other for support as a family, because like I said, it can be very challenging. Thank you for tuning into the episode. I hope this was useful to you, and if it was, please make sure that you share it to others who stand to benefit the most. Remember that this is the 3rd episode in the series. If you wish to view the other episodes, you can go to YouTube channel, subscribe so you get notifications when more content is loaded. Also, we are on social media on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Remember to follow our pages there, where we post some additional content in between the YouTube videos. And let's grow together.